views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of City World Media, LLC, or its affiliates. All shows are produced with full participant consent. City World Media does not claim ownership of any third-party music featured and uses all tracks only with proper permissions or licenses granted by their respective rights holders. City World Media operates in accordance with fair use and digital broadcast guidelines on all platforms. From my city to your world, we are City World. Thank you for watching.
The music of the liberation. Seems that all we're getting is a whole lot of misinformation. Even though it's in the air, it's not always apparent. The level of success is not proportional to talent. The strength of their convictions not proportional to truth. The rate of all convictions not proportional to proof. Make the most of what you got. I hope that you don't bury it. Regret can be a heavy burden. Hope that you don't carry it. Ignore the writing on the wall at your own peril. Sometimes the path that we should take is the one that is narrow. The wrong route is often the one that's shiny and glamorous. Sometimes the right way to go is not always unanimous. Not surprised by all the lies, it's getting really crazy, yo. We need more than what you get from the TV and the radio. Say if we don't like it, then we can just change the station. But it's way bigger than that, gotta change the situation. People want the liberation music, yeah. Got a platform, you gotta use it, oh yeah. If it ain't right, we must refuse it. Exercise your rights before you lose it, oh yeah. People want the liberation music, yeah. Got a platform, you gotta use it, oh yeah. If it ain't right, we must refuse it. Exercise your rights before you lose it, oh yeah. Why try to conform when you were one out of a million? We laid the foundation so you know we're out here building. Trying to make it better, see, can't just sit and let it be. More than entertaining, it's pertaining to a legacy. Speaking truth to power, even questioning authority. If children are the future, shouldn't they be the priority? And action when it happens doesn't seem to be the focus. Sound good when they say it, but in reality it's bogus. Can't get peace and unity with coonery, buffoonery. They think they're out here fooling me, but enough with the tomfoolery. Cleverly disguised, but it's just a bunch of lies. With monopolies and no competition, then innovation dies. Flashback to reality, view the picture in totality. It's just getting worse, it went from crisis to calamity. Hints of the apocalypse, and surely it's a sign. Everything around you burning, but still saying this is fine. People want the liberation music, yeah. Got a platform, you gotta use it, oh yeah. If it ain't right, we must refuse it. Exercise your rights before you lose it, oh yeah. People want the liberation music, yeah. Got a platform, you gotta use it, oh yeah. If it ain't right, we must refuse it. Exercise your rights before you lose it, oh yeah.
What's good, what's good, what's goody, man? It's your buzzing cousin Ghost Boogie. Tonight we've got a very special episode of B-Boys Underground. I cannot wait to get into this conversation, man. Tonight we honor an artist whose story reaches across continents, generations, classroom stages, and recording studios. Dumi Right first gained international attention as one half of Zimbabwe Legit alongside his brother Akeem. The group stands among the earliest African hip-hop acts to secure a United States recording deal and earn recognition beyond the continent. Their early work with Hollywood Basic helped place Zimbabwean voices inside the global hip-hop conversation during the golden era. Their record, Doing damage in my native language also became part of DJ Shadow's early history. Shadow later described his Zimbabwe Legit remix as a defining moment in the development of his sound. Dumi's journey did not stop when the original label opportunity fell apart. He kept building through independent releases, international collaborations, cultural exchange programs, community work, and education. His catalog includes work with Chuck D, Chubb Rock, YZ, Speech from Arrested Development, Sensei, Diamond D, Kev Brown, C-Doc, Breez Evahflowin, Emskee, and artists across Africa and the Diaspora. His latest album, Foreword to the Future, brings his history and present purpose together. Dumi Right and Chuck D served as executive producers, connecting golden era foundations with an independent hip hop's next chapter. Outside the studio, Dumi serves as a professor lecturer and music at George Washington University, where he leads a hip hop ensemble focused on songwriting, production, collaboration, and performance. His work as an educator and cultural ambassador has also taken him into schools, universities, and community programs and international residencies. This is a story about history, survival, ownership, education, global connection, and unfinished work finally receiving its proper place on the record. So tonight, B-Boy Underground welcomes the one and only Dumi Right. We are from the booth to the truth. We're live, uncut, unfiltered, and raw, y'all. And without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on Dumi Right, y'all. What's goody, Dumi? How are you, fam? Welcome in.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, good to see you, Ghost Boogie. Appreciate B-Boys Underground having me on. I'm doing well, man, and I'm gonna have to say that intro you gave needs to be the foreword to my book in the future. That was comprehensive, and you were saying stuff, and I was like, I should have said it that way. Like, you just encapsulated it all and brought my whole story and journey all together. So I appreciate that.
Hey, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you and you being a part of the show. So we gotta give you the round of applause. Yeah, we got Dumi in the house, y'all. I mean, as looking back and looking through and doing my research and everything, and we've got a lot to talk about and get into, right? First, as we always start, when we have a video like this, we start with a music video. And I'm so happy that you chose to start the show off with that one because I absolutely love that song. And I would ask if you would bless us with the backstory behind that song, like the inspiration for it, if there's any stories or anything like that would add some extra, as I say, set the table for the folks that may have heard it for the thousandth time. I cannot speak tonight, y'all. Thousandth time, or the hearing it for the first time. Give it something they can add some extra flavor.
Word up. So that song, like the whole genesis of it says people want the liberation music. There was always this debate as I was, doing work and performing and just being an artist and being in hip hop around, what do people want to hear? You know what I mean? And a lot of times mainstream media dictates what people hear, whether they like it or not, or makes them like it, and they get those earworm songs that get played over and over. And my dissertation, if you will, or argument, my thesis was people actually want the music of freedom, sound freedom, like Bob Marley would say, the music of the streets, the voice of the streets, because that's what hip hop is, right? It was of the streets. It was people telling their stories. And so my argument was people want liberation music because people want liberation. And so I was talking about why try to conform, right? You were one out of a million. Like, why would you want to be like the next person or be a copycat? So that was kind of the thesis going into the song. Heard the beat, this dope cat.
Yeah, who did the production on that?
He goes by ADM, and it was funny because I was working with this guy, and he was like, "Yo, my nephew produces." And he was like, "Yeah, you should hear some of his stuff." And I heard it, and I was like, "Yo, your nephew's got beats." And I talked to his nephew, and he was like, "Yeah, one of the first I heard you guys' CD. He was one of like the first people that I knew of that made music." He's like, "So that was a big inspiration." So it was like a cool full circle moment. But he had a couple different beats over the course of time that I've rocked with. But that one in particular just grabbed me, like. And I was sitting in the car. I remember it. I think I was going to get an MRI or something, and I'm waiting in the
Those
car.
are always fun, huh?
You know, I had knee surgery or whatever, and so I was sitting in the car listening to that over and over, and I was just like, kind of, what is this saying to me? And I'm like, what do people want? And so I answered my own question. I'm like, people want that liberation music. And then the horns were in there, and it kind of gave me flashes of Fela Kuti, you know, kind of those original Afro beat, you know what I mean? The Afro jazz that I grew up with the family playing in the household. And so it really like kind of inspired and compelled that to come out of me, and I got super excited. And then kind of there it was just like, let's tell the story about liberation music and what does it mean to me. So it's kind of like, let me explain how I see liberation music and songs of freedom. And so I started just writing that, and then so connected with this collective called the Beat Conductors. Shout out DJ Olo and Mark Frank. And Mark is like super visual videographer cat, and DJ Olo kind of as executive director of the video, talking about like, well, what do you see? So we had some meetings, some sessions talking about like, what kind of imagery do you want to see? What kinds of things can we do that are gripping, that will pull people into the visual? And the one thing that kind of continues through the video, you see all these cats dressed in hoodies that look alike, that are kind of locked down right in this room. You see the bars on the window, and we're kind of confined, and we're trying to break free, but we're like working together in unison, in solidarity, as a unit. And so it was kind of a beautiful way to kind of, you know, encapsulate what the song was about through the visuals. You know, then we shot different scenes in different other places of me kind of like, you know, pontificating to the camera and setting my point of view, but all coming back to that thing of us as a unit, kind of like, you know, if you look at, quote, Gladiator, you know, if we stay as one, we will survive. You know, that's kind of the mantra. And it was cool because a lot of cats from the area came through to support. So a group called the Poem-Cees, they came through. There's some brothers that are out here on the scene that make music that I've collaborated with on many different things. Cat that does background vocals and performs with me, Soul, was in the video. My cousin Pep was in the video, and a couple other cats. So it was real cool. Mr. Forge. So it was just cool to come together and kind of embody that in the video. So really had fun doing that. And it's like a popular song when I perform live. Like, people always get into it. It's got the call and response, you know. People want the liberation music. Yeah. Got a platform, you gotta use it. Oh yeah. So
man.
It's a real fun song to do.
With those horns and everything. I mean, like, I remember when I first heard that, you know, and came across that one, and, you know, when I was like, this is going in for the ad, like, I got to use this for the promo, like, you know, just because that just, the beat, and then you killed it, you know, especially with the hook, and the message is, you know, it resonates now more than ever, right? On, you know, multiple different levels of how you want to apply it, and there's so much substance to all of the music that you do, you know, and given your background and, you know, who your father was, and, you know, just, we're gonna get into all of that. It's super dope that you're here, and again, very thankful to have you on the show. So if you could, though, like we always do about this time, we always ask the first question, and the first question is, Dumi, please do us the honors and tell us what memory, or what is your first memory that you have associated with hip hop. And what I mean by that also is the first significant memory that you have associated with hip hop music, the one that, made such an impact on you, that put you on this trajectory and this path and course that you are here with us today, and with everything that you've accomplished, right? It's really important, and we'll build upon that. But, put us in the room, let us know who's there, what's going on, and all of that.
Yeah. Now, and it's interesting you asked that question, and I'm gonna do this if I can. I'm gonna do 2 or 3 or maybe 2 time warps,
Absolutely.
just to string it together. Like
Yes.
the very first time, obviously it had heard like Sugar Hill Gang rapping and stuff, and my older brother had kind of introduced us to music. So my oldest brother, he's late, may he rest in peace, Mundla. He went by Fu Manchu, and he was pioneer, entrepreneur, thought leader, and a DJ. But even before he started DJing, he was always, older brother, cool brother. But he was always up on the latest and what was new. Never forget, we were in Zimbabwe, and this is like etched in my memory, and this is probably where I started becoming a part of hip hop as opposed to a casual observer. We were at the house, and we had some family friends over in Zimbabwe. So we were in Zimbabwe at the time, early '80s, real early '80s, and friends are over, and he's talking with their son, that's closer to his age, and me and my brother and I are just out and about, just in the house, and he's like, "Yo, come back to the room. Yo, come. I gotta show you something." And there was the son from the family that was visiting. His name was Chibeza, and he was from Zambia. And if they lived in Zambia, which is a neighboring country to Zimbabwe. And he's like, "It's a new dance out called Electric Boogaloo." He's like, he's gonna show it, and he threw on like, I don't know, some jam, and this dude starts doing the Electric Boogaloo. So I'm like, whoa, my brother's like, my other brother, Akim, who is in Zimbabwe Legit with me, we're both like blown away, because we're like seeing like a brand new dance that we've never seen before unfold like right in front of us. And so it was like magnetic, like, oh man, how did he do that move? And, he did the side swipe, and he did this and he did that. And so we eventually got into dancing through that. And that was actually my gateway into hip hop, was through dance. Like, I was originally a dancer,
So, OG
popping, locking,
B-boy.
b-boying and all that stuff. And so it was definitely what brought me into it before we even started thinking about rapping. So that was kind of like the inception, if you will. Take a time warp forward. So like I said, my older brother, he started DJing and spinning. Didn't know much about that at the time, but just would see him move or whatever. And then he formed a DJ collective and crew, with some friends of his, and they'd get records from colleagues and connections they had in the UK or the US. And so he just stayed with like mad records. So that's like my real next memory, that's also kind of like potent and important to the story. So he'd have records at the house, so he'd have stacks and stacks, like before they'd go do a gig or before he'd do an event, and he'd do like his own events, and they'd promote shows or do events at places. And so I remember digging through his record stacks, in front of those old the wooden stereos. It's got the turntable with the cassette player. And so it'd be in front of the stereo, and he'd have literally like stacks of records, and I'd be flipping through, putting it on. And I remember through that discovering like, oh, this is Run DMC. This is Cool Mo D. He just had so much stuff, and he had like R&B and soul records. He had Shalimar. He had all these different things. Lakeside. I remember Fantastic Voyage. All these, the Gap Band. He just had so much stuff, and we just be putting it on, listening, and that just kind of opened a window to us of music, of like all this stuff. Because bear in mind, we were in Zimbabwe, right? So landlocked country across the ocean. So we weren't necessarily hearing all the stuff that was happening in the US in real time. We'd hear it, maybe you had a cousin, friend, sister, brother overseas. You could get something, get a cassette sent over or something. But otherwise, a lot of the stuff, we wouldn't necessarily be up on. But he had all the latest and greatest jams and joints. And so I remember very poignantly finding the instrumental when you get the 12-inch. And I remember
Yes.
he had Colors, Ice-T's Colors, and it
Yeah.
had an instrumental on the B-side. And I think that's like the first record I actually rapped over because it was instrumental on the B-side. And so we could play Colors and rap, and it was just, and we had like one of those little tape recorders. I don't know if old school cats would remember, like the dictaphone where
Hell
you
yeah.
record and play
Yep.
together. And it was like the ones they use, like journalists would use for like an interview.
Little
So
itty
we
bitty
had-
small joints.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
we'd like record air to air. So play the record on the stereo and have the thing over here, and then rap, and the music would be playing, and our voice would play, and we'd capture it on on a cassette, and that was like, oh wow, we can do this, and it sounded airy or whatever, it wasn't any kind of quality, but it kind of gave us that exposure, and we
Still
initially
yours.
yeah, and initially we was rapping, what Ice-T was rapping, or what somebody else was rapping, or what Rakim was rapping, but I just remember those record collections were like gold dust, like going through and hearing Eric B for President. I came through the door, I said it before, I never liked the mic. And I'm like listening to this stuff, like, man, I remember listening to, You Got Soul or whatever. And I was just like listening to how they put the words together and everything. And it was just like mesmerizing because for the first time it felt like the music was mine or was ours. Like everything else was like, oh yeah, that's what my parents listened to, and it was cool. We grew up with music always in the house, and we had Hugh Masekela, or like I said, Fela Kuti, Miriam Makeba. Then there was obviously pop music that would play on the radio, but it always just felt like it was just there, right? It was just background. But this kind of felt like, oh man, this is something that super resonates, with us. And so I think that's kind of what started that whole spark, for everything that's happened since, was just in those moments and discovering those records, and also seeing my brother move, as a DJ, and try to get his own events going and do things, that hadn't been done before, and kind of break the norm and break the mold that way.
That's dope. Did you ever go with your brother to carry records or help or be a part of it?
He
with
let
where
us
at?
he let us observe, which was cool too. Like sometimes, depending if the things were like all ages open, or sometimes we'd go beforehand, and then we'd have to go back to the crib if it was like an overage thing. But I remember he was managing a dance group. So back to the Electric Boogaloo. Later on, he was managing a dance group called Slip Slide, and there's three brothers, three cats that would do Electric Boogaloo, and he'd bring them to clubs, and they get hired by different events and clubs to perform, and he was the manager. He'd do the booking and coordinating, and he'd bring us to like the sound check rehearsal, and like watch them do their thing, and see him politicking with the owners or whatever about the fee and all this stuff. But it was kind of like seeing a enterprising businessman in action doing his thing.
How much older
kind of
was he
seeing. He was like 10 years older.
10 years
and
older.
stuff.
Okay.
So
And
he
then
was,
your younger brother, how
so I'm the youngest.
You are the youngest,
And then
okay.
Kim is 3 years older than me.
3 years.
And then my
Okay.
sister, and then the oldest brother. or whatever,
Gotcha.
Fu Manchu. But yeah, he was known, you know what I mean, in Zimbabwe. It's Fu Manchu, on the wheels and DJing and setting up events and parties and different stuff like that. Unfortunately, I mean, he's passed away, so may he rest in peace.
Rest in
But
peace.
it was at a time where being a DJ wasn't really like a lucrative profession. You know what I mean? And so as much as he was trying to do all these innovative things, it wasn't the type of thing that could, turn itself into a career at that point, when he
Yeah,
was
the
doing
market
it.
hadn't caught up with what was going on in the movement. It was still
Exactly.
in its infancy here in the States, and I could only imagine how it was over there too, you know what I mean, when it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the way it is now, where it's just, it's part of every single culture and every single,
Yeah,
everything. Hip
for
hop's
sure.
part of everything.
Sure.
Question for you. So, were you born in Zimbabwe?
So the short story, born upstate New York. So
That's
before
what I
independence,
saw. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
before independence, 3 out of the 4 kids were born in Syracuse. My parents were living upstate in New York in Syracuse and going to getting their degrees at university. And so that's where we were born. But I left when we were little, or I was little when we left, I should say. So I was like 5 when we left. First, we went to Zambia, which is the neighboring country to Zimbabwe, and then we went to Zimbabwe. And so I was there. Zambia 77, Zimbabwe 1980. And that's kind of where I discovered and started, getting into all things hip hop.
gotcha. That's dope. That's dope. You know, basically, one of the things that I know that when you were talking about, of course, your brother, was there a specific record besides Colors outside of that you can remember that like had another big impact on you?
In terms of me, like, being inspired by, there was a series, album series, and I don't know if folks here remember it because I think it was out of the UK, called Electro Funk. And
I
that
have
series,
I have those.
Electro Funk,
Yeah,
gave us like kind of everything. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because I remember Captain Rock. I think there was just so many different records on that one record. So for people who were trying to search and find like the newest, that kind of was like smorgasbord. Like boom, here you go. Here goes all of the latest joints that you need to know about. In one shot. And so those records, I remember, like, just were like intriguing, and it used to be a thing like, oh, Electro 3 is out. Oh no, you lying, Electro 3 isn't out, just 2 is out. Like, oh no, my cousin got 3. And those things were just like intriguing. But I will say, like, in terms of like studying emceeing and the art of it,
Hmm.
like when I heard what Rakim was doing, like, it was wild. I remember listening to Move the Crowd, and just the way he crafted it, standing by the speaker. Suddenly I heard this. Fever wasn't here either. Summer madness. I just can't stand around. I get closer. The closer I get, the better it sound. Rhymes and imagine. And I was just like, and then he did Follow the Leader, and it was like, forget it. Like, this dude is on something else, right? He's traveling through space and throughout the universe.
The God MC himself.
It was that. And then I remember Public Enemy, It Takes a Nation of Millions, had the lyrics inside the cassette. So that was like, boom, here you go. Here goes your syllabus, your curriculum, your course. Because then you could read and hear and follow along. And so that was kind of a game changer, because it was like, not only was Chuck just on another level in the whole Public Enemy and the sound, the
Bomb
deconstruction of
Squad.
sound, all of that stuff. Yeah, with the Bomb Squad, and how they were flipping samples and sounds. But then you could follow along and see the words and kind of see the construction of rap. And I think that in itself was an education of like, oh, okay, so here's how he constructed the rap. And this is, if you miss a word, you can see it on the paper. You can see the names of the people he's calling out. And that was a huge influence, because I remember, getting into like Malcolm X. I'm in Africa studying, in school, so we didn't necessarily know all the civil rights, leaders and people that were at the forefront of the struggle in the U.S. But through Public Enemy, hearing these names and these principles and thoughts and ideas, and I mean even just the Jesse Jackson brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to, and just as a way to start a song is like, I mean, nothing short of like groundbreaking, right? So that was like a really inspirational, and even just coming up with titles and names. Like, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back was just like so cool. Like, just how they kind of broke the mold in that way. So I think hearing that album for me was like out of this world. And then it also gave me something like a pattern to emulate. And I think if we take it all the way back to like all the way forward to like liberation music, the reason why I do spit lyrics that talk about topical subjects is because those early influences were talking about stuff that was meaningful, talking about the struggle and talk about what people are going through, as a way through of expressing, through hip hop, what's going on is, a real time commentary on life and also
Yeah,
speaking truth to power.
absolutely. Yeah, man. I can only imagine, what it was like to hear, you know, hear Public Enemy speak, for the first time over there and everything like that. And we'll get into it, but it's crazy that, one of those memories and one of those things that, you ended up working with him, and, you're part of his record label, and, you've been releasing projects and just co-executive produced your latest album with him.
Man, it's surreal. Like, actually, when I think about it, just how they talk about full circle, but like it gets no full circler than that, right? To be like this person that was an influence in how I even started doing this. You know what I mean? Like, kind of gave me the blueprint. Like, this is what hip hop is. And I remember even just reading like early interviews of Chuck, and he was talking about Yo Bum Rush the show, and kind of how people just hear you rocking, but little do they know they're getting the knowledge as you speak and as you drop and
Yeah.
everything. And then there's overt stuff like Shut 'Em Down, or just as you go through the PE catalog, just such poignant verses, songs, music. And I think that's kind of like made me gravitate towards the KRS ones and the the people that are speaking truth, the Jungle Brothers and all of that
Native
stuff.
tongues, man.
Oh, heck yeah.
And you ended up, and we'll get into that too down the line, but you ended up, being closely associated with those cats too in a roundabout way too. So,
Yeah,
with
nah,
Mr. Long and all
and
of
yeah,
that.
with Funk and Klein and Mr. Long producing the
Yeah.
joint. So yeah, nah, it's
That's dope.
straight up surreal. You know what I mean? Like, I keep using that word. Like, it's just like you think about it, and then it's next thing you know, you're kind of in it. You're immersed in it, and so it's a beautiful thing.
It's a
And I
very small
figure,
community. It seems like it's large, but it's a very small community, world small. And here's the one thing I want to know about is that moving forward, take me back to the Beat Street screenings in Harare, and please forgive me if I mispronounce everything, because I mispronounced my kids' names. So I mean,
now you said it right in
yeah.
Harare, and
Look,
yes,
I googled that stuff and was like Harare.
yeah. No, that's straight up. You got it. You got it on point. On point. But now it's funny you said that, because like you were like, what's your first or like important hip hop memory? And there's so many. Beat Street was another one, because again, like I keep going back to the thing of like folks should understand, like, if we had record stores, but it was no hip hop records in the record stores. Like,
None
you could get
whatsoever.
Madonna, you could get Michael Jackson, you could get Whitney Houston, Elton John, but there was no hip hop because it's just the nature of the times and all that stuff. And so seeing a movie like Beat Street, where you got everybody in it, right? Was so important to us, because that gave us like a super broad exposure and education of like the crews and artists and pioneers and all the folks that were in it. And then again, like I said, we started out as b-boys, and so the obviously the battles with New York City Breakers and Rocksteady or Beat Street, the Bronx Rockers, just was like so captivating. And before VHS, DVD, it's not like you can just put it on at home and pause it. And so
Right.
we were actually going to the movies to learn the moves and be like, oh, he did this, he did that, what was that move or whatever. And so that was like super crazy, and it was always just a great fun movie. But yeah, like Dougie Fresh and Kool Moe Dee's in it, and Herc is in it, and all this stuff. Like, it was just super cool, like watching. And it was funny because we wanted to get our shine. So at the end of the movie, we'd have a little dance cipher at the, at the bottom in front of the screen once the movie ended. And initially they chased us out because they're like, we're trying to
Yeah.
clean the theater. Then, they'd be like, young man, like Mfana, like, little boy, Mfana, get out, get out, get out. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And like I said, we watched the movie multiple times, so there wasn't no stopping us. We came back and did that again. And then people started circling around and clapping, and then the theater owners were like, "Oh wow, okay, this is actually like a draw." So they're like, "Can y'all come back? Like, we'll give
Yeah,
y'all free
that's
tickets.
crazy, right?
We'll give y'all some ice cream. Like, come back and make sure you do this." So it became like a thing. But that was like cool. But that was like a window into like just kind of seeing the whole rap scene, the whole hip hop scene, and it was also like a whole different world for us. Totally different lifestyle and culture that we were getting exposed to through that. So.
Do you think that those gatherings, like, and especially with Beat Street, and then of course, you had the folks that were gathering around after the movie and everything like that, what would you say, or how did that help build a community? Did that help start forming a hip hop based community there locally in your area?
I think the way the community got built was when people started, and I think it's probably a direct result of Beat Street forming crews, right? So we had a crew called, like my brother and my cousin and others and me by proxy, called why am I drawing a blank? I'm thinking of the Rivals. So Street Syndicate was another crew that we battled, and Master Force was our crew. And so just as people started crewing up, and then of course now you got different crews you want to have, like battles or whatever, different meet up at different places, and there's contests and competitions. And so I think that kind of built up like the community. Then there was events around, there's this breakdance contest or whatever, and all of these things were happening that kind of built that up. And again, a lot of that was before any of us were really rapping, like per se, or whatever. I know when I started rapping, I just started writing. Like I wasn't, like I told you about the air-to-air recordings, but I wasn't trying to let nobody hear that because I didn't like the sound of my voice. You sound squeaky, like a young teenager on tape or whatever. But yeah, I think we'd just go to events and they'd have like, different events, and they'd always be like, "Yo, can you guys come dance at this event? This thing is popping off. We're having this, contest. Come through and do your thing." And so that built it up. And the other thing important, and it's funny, you're asking questions that are actually making me think of this in a new light. In some ways I haven't really thought of. The other way of building community was through tapes and hearing what the latest joints were. So like I said, you couldn't get it in the record store. Vividly remember when 3 Feet High and Rising came out.
Ooh,
and there was like 10 to 12 of us went to this guy's house because he had it and put it in, and we just sat around, listening to the album from beginning to end. And that kind of builds like the community, because then it was like, oh well, I've got Public Enemy, let's trade, let's swap. And so people were doing these tape exchanges of music, and that kind of felt like, oh yeah, you need to talk to him, he's got the latest.
Were you guys making dubs?
Oh man, over like as much as possible. If you had a double-decker cassette deck, or if some people at their house, their parents had the 2 cassette recorder stereo, it's like, man, we got to go to his house. Like, nah, his dad doesn't want people over. It's like, oh, okay, what about in the afternoon after school? It's like, nah, but you just got to bounce by like 4:30 before Pops comes home. And we'd be like dubbing, and you'd be like, yo, do you have any blanks? I need some blank cassettes, and that's where we were like, yo, you got to get your TDKs, because otherwise you get these cheapy creepies.
That's
you're
right.
going to get chewed, you'd be like, yo, your tape got chewed. It's like, yo, don't. All of that stuff is crazy.
TDK SA90s were my jam. The black and gold joints. That's the only thing that was. They had the best sound. And shout out. I just found going through my my stuff in the basement, I found a fresh, complete pack of TDK
Wow,
SA90s, like
wow, wow.
from like my original days of when I was making mixtapes and stuff. I was like,
Right,
ooh, I got. That's like, do I
right.
open these up or what? Do I, these are relics. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
keep them as a relic, like you said. And I
Yeah.
remember then we discover, like, okay, you get the Maxell, and then I think Denon or whatever,
Denons, yeah.
and then I remember somebody was like, oh, I got the C120, so you can put more music on it. But them joints were liable to get chewed, like you
Yeah,
get
the
the
120s were
120
a little,
a
yeah.
little dicey,
It took
and
too
so,
much. It because the it put a lot of stress on your tape deck motor because it was,
yeah,
those reels were heavier internally. So
yeah,
90 was the sweet spot,
yeah, yeah.
for it to go. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's
So
dope, man.
So
Like,
we all get together, share tapes, exchange tapes, and it's always like, "What do you got?" Because there's always that, "Oh yeah, my man's gonna hook me up." It's like, no, but this other cat wants to know. It's like, "Oh well, I've got this. I got the new LL Cool J." It's like, "Oh okay, let's trade. I got this and this," and then you dub. And then some friends had other friends who were DJs. We'd go over their house, and it's all real time, right? It's no download. So it's like if I'm gonna record on my SA90, I'm gonna be there for 90 minutes recording music, or times however many cassettes, because you had to sit through it.
yep,
But I also think that gave us the appreciation, right? Because you had to listen to the whole thing, you had to play the whole thing, and you appreciate it when you got it because it took some work. You didn't just be like, "Poop, download that."
yeah.
Not feeling it.
That absolutely resonates with me as well because it did take work to the thing that I always equate with like this digital era and age to back to the physical era and age, us 1900 folks, basically the fact that you can't just go snatch a bunch of stuff down or also just pull a playlist down and go through it. There was a very much an intentional process of either putting a cassette in or catching it and recording it and then also putting on a piece of vinyl or um, listening to the radio to catch it and record it live, right? There was so much to it. And yeah, you listen to it and and it wasn't something where you could just, put it on 1,000 songs and shuffle and you had to like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this album or this cassette and I'm gonna flip it, but this is all I've got and I'm gonna listen to it over and over and over again and kind of really I guess bonded with the music in a way like vibrationally and sonically where I feel like that's missing, especially for me. It's like there's when I pull off vinyl off the shelf and and especially like vinyl that I've grown up with or like I DJ'd with and stuff like that, when I pull it, there's memories associated with it, right? And like I
Yeah.
hold it and it takes me back to places and times and memories and it's like, wow, I can't believe I just remembered that. I haven't thought about that in forever. And it's like, you put it on and you select a track or whatever. That's
Yeah.
dope. Yeah.
And that's you touched on something important. I'm gonna have to ask somebody if there's research on this, but it's like they say smells, like if you hear smells from your youth, it
Yes.
transports you back.
Yes. I'm very much that way.
Sounds can transport you back, and then like actual tactile response to something. And so I wonder when everything is digital, like you just hearing something on the computer, yeah, the song may take you back to be like, oh, but you're not interacting with it in the same physical kind of way where it like
Hmm.
is imprinted. You know what I mean? It takes you back to that moment in time, which is what music does, right? It like preserves that memory of like this is what was going on, or shares that feeling or that vibe that was going on. So yeah,
Yeah. That's dope. I mean, for real, because, and I absolutely 100% agree because also, you think about with 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 the music that's put on those tapes, right? There's a transfer of energy, right? Because a lot of the original pressings and the original masters when they were recording the tape, it didn't just pick up like the recording, it also picked up the energy in the room and when it was being
Right.
recorded, and just, good and bad, right? So like it was just one of those things that I agree with you wholeheartedly, where it feels like this digital era is kind of missing that. So the
Yeah.
fact that when you can get a physical copy of something and put it out there and grab it, either to collect it or to play it, I'm always for people to go ahead and do that as much as they possibly can.
And I think it's also more durable because, like, I
Hmm.
have, like you said, iPod Shuffle or whatever. Or I think I had a Nano, and there's
Uh-huh.
like hundreds of songs, and there's some songs that you just don't listen to because they're 999 in the shuffle, and they might just not come up. Whereas when you had like a cassette, especially, like you listen to it linearly, right? And not saying we should be stuck in time and not advance, but you listen to the whole cassette. So by virtue, people sequence their albums in a way that, this is side A, this is going to get you into it, this is a concept. Where now it's just like I can just throw 10 songs together because you're probably going to pick your favorite two and be
Yep.
like, oh, I like that other one. What's it called? I don't even know. It was the second one. Like there's not
Yeah.
really an attachment to it. And I feel like, having that physical, you like appreciate and like go back to it. Like there's stuff, yeah, downloaded, digital, or you don't even download it now, you stream it, so you really don't go back to it, right? Like it's
Yep.
like I haven't listened to that album in so long because it's not around, out of sight, out of mind. Where if it's
Yep.
physical, it's like it's right there, digging through your collection. You'd be like, "Yo, let me put this joint on."
Yeah.
There's a
Absolutely.
freshness to it.
Absolutely, I agree with that. So, you had mentioned earlier about writing to the first instrumental that you had, which was Ice T Colors, right? But I wanted to ask you, out of, you know, when you and Akeem became Zimbabwe Legit, first off, who started writing first?
Kim, definitely. Like him and my cousin were like, I guess, made that next step, transitioning from the dance to like writing and making songs and doing stuff. And so I was kind of following their lead and writing, but I wasn't reciting because I didn't really feel comfortable doing it. But I'd
Yeah.
observe them kind of doing their thing or whatever. And then I also used to write poetry, so I just would write and turn my poetry into raps and just keep writing and writing. But yeah, Kim definitely started first, but I was not far behind on his heels. He actually came to the U.S. Before me, like a year before me, I want to say. And he was at Buff State, and he was like, "Yo, he's trying to, get things going and figure out how we can do demos or whatever." And then I followed not shortly thereafter, and we had concepts and ideas, and the whole thing was like we wanted to, from what we'd learned and observed from all the other hip hop artists we admired and loved, was that they told a unique story about who they were. And so we were like, this is perfect. Like, we want to talk about who we are. And especially when hip hop started in the Afrocentric era, became prominent in hip hop, we really felt centered because we heard songs talking about Africa and the motherland, sampling, like Manu Dibango and stuff like that. And so we really felt centered. When we heard Stetsasonic, Africa, Africa, that another pivotal moment because they mentioned Zimbabwe. So we were like,
Yeah.
yo, they definitely talking about us. We definitely have a story to tell and definitely feel like we want a part of that. But that came later. Like I said, Kim kind
Yeah.
of was the torchbearer in like getting started with that.
Gotcha. And how did you and him become and form a group?
We were like, I mean, just as brothers, we danced together and kind of,
Yeah.
vibed together and ran together. And so it was kind of natural. And then we kind of just had this idea of like, how can we tell the story in our words, with our perspective of who we were. And so we just started coming up with ideas to be like, well, what should we talk about? Like, oh, what kind of things can we say? You know, what would resonate? Like, what do people want to hear from us? What can we tell them? And so I think it was just by combining ideas and thoughts and like since like we had danced together, we had like steps and routines and stuff like that we knew we could incorporate that would be fresh to do. And so it's kind of like dynamic duo of like little things we could do. And like we're even like incorporating like African dance, like the gumboot dance steps and stuff, and like the stomp, kind of like stepping, like that you see, and stuff like that we do and that we'd been doing, just even fooling around. But we were like, that would make a compelling like performance. And so we kind of had like all the different aspects, like, okay, what are we going to talk about conceptually? Like, what's our thought process? How are we going to appear? And we had the idea that like he liked to like rock dashikis and stuff like that, and I couldn't wait to get over here so I could rock some fresh Adidas, some or whatever, Nike jacket. And so it was like, that's the contrast. Like, we're both African and American, and we kind of represent those two halves of the spectrum. And so there's just a lot of synergies between what we wanted to do together.
That's dope. Who came up with the name Zimbabwe Legit?
Funkin' Klein. So when we came across, we were like, yo, the brothers from the mother. It sounded dope, and it is still like subtitle, if you will. We're also coming out when things did get moving, with the label. They were like, we don't want people to mistake the fact that y'all are from Zimbabwe and from Africa and just think, oh, these cats is from Brooklyn or something, from Manhattan. They call it brothers from the mother, because that could be anything. And so they were like, but y'all are the actual Zimbabwe cats. And this is early, right? Like, one of the earliest groups coming out of Africa doing it. And so they were like, you're like the Zimbabwe Legit, Zimbabwe or whatever. So it was like Zimbabwe Legit. And we're like, oh, that's dope. That's fresh. We were all in with that. But that's definitely kudos to Dave Funkin' Klein. May he rest in peace on coining that. And, we talked about kind of what we wanted to do conceptually, but he definitely coined that name.
And you mentioned that, which transitions us over to the fact that, you answered an article in the Source magazine, right? And you guys are accredited as one of the first, hip hop groups from Africa to, make it, in America and also on an international stage, right? But you reached out to him via a letter. You wrote him a letter on Source, from the Source magazine. Could you tell me that story, as far as like, you see in the article, and then like, all right, I'm gonna write this cat, right? Like, because I mean that takes a lot of courage, right, to be able to do that. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and I'd attribute it to like a lot of times as when you're younger and hungry, you don't consider limitations of what's possible. You just do because you think, the sky's the limit. And so I think that effervescent energy and hopefulness and exuberance is kind of what carried the day. So Funkin' Klein had a column in the Source called Gangsta Limpin' with Funkin' Klein. And he'd always talk about what was going on in the international hip hop scene. Yo, my people's out in Germany, what's good? Oh, in London, this is popping. Hey, I got, a letter from here, there, everywhere. And so at the end of his Gangsta Limping, he'd be like, international hip hop community, where y'all at? Let me know what's going on in your area, and I might shout you out in the column, right? And so we're like, oh, dope. We want to shout out like Gangsta Limping in the Source. Same
Yeah.
problem is with the music, is with the magazine. It's not like we could go to the magazine rack and go to this magazine store, bookstore, and get the Source magazine. You had to get it from a friend, cousin, uncle, and be like, oh, this is magazine in the U.S. And Source was also fledgling at the time, getting bigger, but still on the
Yeah.
come up. So you had to have somebody that was a connect to get you a copy of the Source. So get the Source, see the column, see the shout outs to the international hip hop community, which we felt we were a part of. And so we hit him up. We're like, yo, we're out in Zimbabwe and, all this and all that stuff with all the bravado we could muster. And he wrote back. And again, this was like letters, snail mail, like
Right.
write it, put a couple stamps on it, send it, and hope for a reply. And he replied and he was like, yo, that's dope. Send me any pictures you guys have. What are you guys up to? This is really cool. And he also mentioned during the course of the correspondence that he was working at Red Alert Productions with Queen Latifah and the Jungle Brothers and everything. And so it was like exciting. He sent us a couple Red Alert Productions newsletters. New group coming up, the Tribe Called Quest. Be on the lookout. I think Definition of a Fool or something. And he's like, as you heard, he's giving us all the scoop that was in the newsletter of all the stuff that was going on. I remember he sent us like promos and stuff, like some tapes. I remember he sent the Queen Latifah record when that dropped. So it was really cool just getting kind of all the latest and greatest and corresponding with him. But one of the things we emphasized early on was, we're not just fans, like, hey, we're listening to hip hop out here. We rap too. And he's like, oh, word? Y'all rap? He's like, let me hear something. And so, we put some demos together, like, let's put something, that kind of emphasizes the concepts that we're trying to bring, which was, kind of that perspective of young dudes in Africa and Zimbabwe specifically, talking about our perspective of hip hop, but also incorporating and infusing African traditional music with hip hop, and combining and blending that and kind of making that connection. And so he heard the demos and he wrote back and was like, yo, this is, I don't know exact words he used, but he was like, this is fresh. Like, this is really cool. And he's like, when I heard you guys say you rapped, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. That's fun. He's like, when I heard it, I'm like, oh, these guys really have skills. And so the one thing he asked was like, again, pre-internet, digital email and all that stuff. Are you guys going to be coming to the U.S. anytime soon? He's like, because then we could really sit down and try to figure something out.
Yeah.
Had no idea he was going to be working at a record label at that point. He was just the magazine columnist, but obviously knew the magazine was big up and was doing a lot of things. But and so as it turns out, like I was saying, my brother was coming to go to college at Buff State. I was coming over to the U.S. to also go to college, and so it was like, hey, maybe we can make something happen. We can sit down with this cat and see what the deal is. And so he was in Red Alert Productions offices on West 29th Street. Still remember that. In New York City. He's like, yo, if you come to the U.S., let me know. We were staying with my uncle in Binghamton, upstate New York. Went into the studio again because we're like, yo, we got to put together some super thorough demos like now, like everything we thought of and kind of sketched out. We're like, let's like lock it down. So we'd be like rehearsing stuff and everything. Hit him up. He was like, yo, if you come to the city, let's have a meeting, hear some music, talk about, what's possible. He'd obviously heard some preliminary stuff that, piqued his interest. And then he told us, he's like, hey, I'm actually going to LA to start a record label called Hollywood Basic. He's like, and I liked what I heard from y'all once we made it to New York and sat down and met with him. He's like, I'd like to, try to do something with y'all when I get the label set up. He's like, I had a couple groups, couple projects that I'm gonna start with. He's like, but I definitely want to do something with y'all. And the one thing he said, he's like, I want to see what would happen when we take the rhymes and concepts that y'all have and get like a dope New York producer, with some heat to like cook up the production for you all. And one of those people, he's like, there's this group that's about to drop called the Black Sheep. He's like, and Mr. Long is the producer. He's like, I talked to him about you guys. And so he's super interested. Word up right there, Mr. Long and Drez. But yeah, so he actually, when we met, listened to the demos, talked, did some strategizing. And he's like, yeah, let me bring you guys over to Mercury Records and introduce you to the Black Sheep. And so, like, one of the first people, in the music biz that we met was Black Sheep over at Mercury Records. Cookie Crew was there because I think they were also doing a collaboration with the Cookie Crew over from the UK. And it was funny because we'd also check the Cookie Crew, just on video and music and everything. But yeah, he brought us over to Mercury. We introduced us to folks over there, but then chatted with Mr. Long right quick and everything. But it was dope, and it was cool too. Like going to New York, first time in New York City, or whatever. Two teenagers, trying to find our way, had directions to where to go.
In the Big Apple at that, right?
Big Apple, and this is 1990. 42nd Street, not 2000s.
Right.
Gritty, grimy.
It was grimy, yeah.
And so, talking to my uncle, and he's like, yeah, be careful, don't look like you don't fit in. Because we had on dashikis and beads, and he's like, y'all look like tourists, man. Y'all gotta put on a bubble jacket or something at least. Look like you fit in.
Get you some Timbs or something, man.
Yeah, So anyway, we rolled, got at Port Authority, had no idea which way to go, but asked people for directions. Had some people trying to hustle us, like, yo, y'all lost? Y'all need to, like, nah, we're good. And made it to the offices of Red Alert Productions and stuff. And it's really cool now to bump into Red Alert, and like he'll be like, oh yeah, how you doing? He's like, how's your brother doing? Because my brother ended up doing some jingles for him when he was on the radio. And he's telling like the people he's with, he's like, oh yeah, these guys came to my office when I had an office on Red Alert Productions and down in Manhattan or whatever. So that's just really cool to be affiliated, like you said, in some way with
royalty. I mean, and
Yeah.
DJ Cool Red Alert, man. I mean, man, mad respect to him. I mean, I got a chance to meet him once and hang out with him. But yeah, man, like when I got a chance to meet him, it was just like kind of like in one of those things. It's like, all right, let's not geek out, but this is the man right here. I mean, DJ Cool Red Alert.
Yeah. And we had heard tapes of DJ Red Alert going berserk in Zimbabwe, which again was the way we got exposed to all these different songs and joints that we would have never otherwise heard through his mix show. And so that was dope. But and then when we did eventually, we had to record when Dave got to Hollywood Basic, they put us back in the studio to record like a label demo. And so we went in with Mr. Long and a couple other producers to do like a demo to see if the label was going to decide to proceed with doing a record or not. And we recorded at Calliope, which, at the time it was just like, other heads to record here, but it was like De La recorded, Prince Paul instead, so it was just like, wow, like we got to be in some historic spaces, you know what I mean, and rock, and also observe. Like, I remember watching Mr. Long, because everything we'd done before that's 4-track, maybe somebody has a drum machine or something, but we're watching him and Scotty Hard, the engineer, mix down and first produce, he's like sampling and looping different stuff for the song, but then seeing them mix down on the non-automated, like the manual board, no flying faders, none of that, and like bringing stuff in and out,
manually punching in and out and muting and everything. Man,
all of that. So that was like our like education into like, okay, this is how it goes down, this is how it's done formally. So that was real cool as well. Like, I remember King's son came by the studio just to say what up. He knew Dave, so he was like, yo, I'm gonna swing by. Dave was like, yeah, come on through. And of course he had made the song about being proud to be what it means to be black and everything, and talking about the medallions and people like so it was real cool just to kind of be in that setting and be in that environment. It was real eye-opening.
And you guys you picked the name "Doing Damage" in my native language. Who chose that title?
So that was me, and it was actually a lyric. Because I was like spitting rhymes, and one of my lyrics was like, I was like, I could manage to do damage in my own language, but if I did, maybe you wouldn't understand it. But since I'm a creator and an innovator, I'll act as both MC and translator. And Funkline was like, whoa, word, why don't you do damage in your native language? And I was like, oh, yeah. So the line became a song.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of like, hey, let's give you a phrase in our native language in Ndebele, and then flip it to like what the slang equivalent would be in English and stuff. So, like, it was also clever, fun, kind of just way to play, and also a way to introduce a language that people aren't familiar with, but by using slang words to go back and forth and make it more, resonate more. So that was cool.
That's dope. And then, Mr. Long, what was because I know that you mentioned, just being there and watching and observing and seeing what it was like, from recording on a 4-track to all of a sudden now you're in a real studio and, like you said, historical people and albums were recorded there and you were a part of that. But specifically, what did Mr. Long bring to that for you guys? Like that, what did he help pull out of you?
Everything, man, everything. Like he was Queen. I don't know if I've even told him that. Haven't talked to him in a while. He was a Quincy Jones, man. So he was like, "Hey, now brothers from the mother, I want y'all to come, as far as like even just boosting up the energy or just how we were kicking it or like we were like bouncing back and forth and reciting it." And he was like, "Well, let's do a little skit at the beginning of the song and like have you guys like kind of calling me out because I'm like, yo, I'm just rocking beads as part of the fashion." And we're like, nah, it's not about fashion. It's about, you got to decide to bead or not to bead. And so we had like a little skit and interaction. So it was good because it was kind of like artist development, you know what I mean? Like if you haven't been in like the studio and like understand like in the professional setting, like this is how to craft a record, just don't just start the song and start rapping type of thing. So kind of even doing like some executive production, I'd argue, and then others as well, providing input. But other thing too, like he did cuts on Doing Damage, like you hear Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, that was Mr. Long.
That's Mr. Long cutting that out, and he nasty with the cuts.
Yes, he is.
But he was like, yo, and I don't know if we did this on the demo or we did it the second time around, but either way, it's on the final record. He was like, okay, so when the song starts, he's like, we all gonna start chanting, hey, ho, hey, ho. And so we did it. He's like, check it out, drop it. And then I start rapping. So just in terms of like crafting that dope intro and kind of hypeness for the song, like he brought all of that. And then he produced, like, he was like a mastermind in producing that track and like all the different breaks and drops and the samples and the loops and everything that we built, the rhymes around and wrote the rhymes to. So that was also just cool, just seeing that whole thing come together, because it wasn't just like a straight loop either. It was pieced together like masterfully. So that was a real game changer, I think, as well. I think some of the other joints on the record, it was more like, yo, here's the track, okay, here's the rhymes, okay, let's work it, okay, here's what we wrote. But that joint was just like from nothing, just seeing it get assembled and come together,
Yeah, that's dope. And so he was the one that just basically set the framework and put everything together and kind of helped give you that energy. And I'm sure that was a tremendous boost of confidence for you as well, because you hearing, you have someone producing and pulling, walking you through the process, and then, pulling out all of this other stuff and you're hearing it back real time. It's got to be like confidence boost. Like, man, now I
Yeah.
know, like, yeah, we really do this. Like, we did this before, but now we really, really do this. That's dope. You
Yeah.
know, one of the things also I thought was dope was, DJ Shadow has his Zimbabwe Legit remix, and it was the first time he captured this. Well, this is by his own words. It was the first time he captured the sound he heard in his head. And do you remember, or what do you remember about the first time you heard and received that remix?
Yeah, nah, it was potent. I think there's a line in there that's like, many people don't realize the potence, the frequency or something. I think that's on the original Doing Damage, but just that vibrant, like, sound evoking everything that we'd been talking to Funkenklein about like what we wanted our direction to be and what we were
Yeah.
bringing to the table and how we wanted to take this kind of rugged boom bap hip hop and infuse it with that soulful Afro jazz, Afro funk, traditional African
Hmm.
sounds and voices and chants, and just kind of bring it all together. So it's, I think, a fitting, cap on like bringing together all those concepts and ideas. And so it's like super cool, definitely for that all to come together. And
Did you
that,
get a chance to meet him?
now we've just corresponded and talked, but we didn't connect. I've recently connected back with him, so we've just been corresponding and stuff.
That's
But
dope.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, or of course, with him crediting you, you guys helping him find his sound, and that helped him have James Lavelle find him,
right,
off of that, right? And, everybody that should know, if you know your hip hop history, you should know who DJ Shadow is.
right.
One of the illest out there to do it, and still doing it. So mad love to DJ Shadow. Would love to have you on the interview sometime. Um,
Word up. And I always throw it out there, just like I threw that letter to Funkenklein. It would be dope to bring it all full circle, with
and work
DJ
with them
Shadow.
again. Yeah, man,
That would
absolutely.
be ill, that would be super ill. So God willing, you know what I mean? Maybe down the line, something like that will pop off.
Now, do you know, because I know that you had all of that energy, you recorded the demo and everything like that. Was there a plan where the label had like a release schedule, and were you guys like greenlit and ready to go before kind of everything kind of fell apart? Or
Yeah, so we dropped an EP.
yeah,
We shot a video for Doing Damage in my native language, dropped the EP, and working on joints for like a full length. Funkenklein's health was also on the decline. And also, when you're at a label and the person who signs you isn't necessarily there to like advocate, I know
yeah,
there's also pressure for more commercial type success, because I mean, this was
especially during that time too.
part of Hollywood Records, which is part of Disney. So there's, those pressures. I remember Funkenklein was saying, he was being asked, where's the crisscross? Where's the next crisscross that he's going to drop, And he had like a kind of a great vision and focus. But so in between all those things happening, as it does in industry circles in the music business, we kind of just, as they say, fell out of rotation or whatever, and then the
Yeah,
label, kind of went under and stuff. So that was the end of that chapter with Hollywood Basic. But one of the things I remember, one of the important lessons that Funkenklein was telling us and telling me when we were talking was like, just don't stop. Like, don't ever stop. Just keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, just keep at it. You know what I mean? Don't be discouraged. Don't let it stop you. Just keep pushing. So it's a song we've kept with us. So we kept going. Like, years later, we're still doing it at a high level. because it always so breaks my heart, like when I talk to other cats in the game or
Hmm.
in the business, and it's like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. I used to, and even if it's not just music, like people are like, oh, I used to be an artist. Oh, I used to play guitar, but I haven't done that in a while because life is too hectic, and it's a shame, it's a reality. But I give thanks that I'm still able to do it. You know what I mean, and still make a mark, and still influence people, and still have a voice, and still have an audience that can check for the things that I do. These many years later. You know.
Amen. Amen. And that's awesome because, that ties back to something at the last question that I asked C-Doc last Monday. When I wrapped up, I was like, what's the main lesson and everything that you could give or advice that you could give someone? He said, never stop, keep going and keep just like what you said, continue and show up and even do it on the days when you don't feel like doing it. And, you got to do it. And just, if you believe in it and it's what you want to do, you got to keep at it. So yeah, much love because you definitely showed perseverance through a time that, when, you had all of this potential and you felt it, the rise, and then things changed. And I'm sure that was a very, I will speak for myself. I know I'd have been in my emotions a whole lot. like, like,
Yeah, and true story. So, like after you're in the label situation, the label's in limbo. You're really not even sure if you're still with the label. So,
yeah,
are you free to do your own thing, or is there still like some obligation and all of this stuff? And so, interestingly enough, whatever, a chapter or part of a chapter of the story is this group that my cousin and I did, and my brother popped in and out of a little bit, called Of Unknown Origin, OUO.
yes,
And the reason we did that group was because it was kind of the contrast to Zimbabwe Legit. You kind of know where we're from and what we're representing. And OUO, Of Unknown Origin, was kind of like, you don't even know where these cats are from or what they're all about. You got to listen to figure it out, to unpack.
right,
And that was part of the struggle of like trying to figure out like, what do we do next? Where do we go? What do we call ourselves? Can we call ourselves Zimbabwe Legit and still put stuff out, or is somebody gonna be like, oh, you guys are, contracted, or that
yeah,
name?
we are the rights, yeah,
And so that's what that was born out of. But the funny thing is, through all of that, whenever we'd meet people or talk to people, they'd be like, yo, Zimbabwe Legit. Oh, I remember that. I remember running into Evil D in New
mad
York.
respects to Evil D.
Yeah, mad respect. On Broadway, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Zimbabwe Legit. Yeah, whatever happened to y'all? I remember y'all. They bigged y'all up in the source." And then we, kind of told an abbreviated version of the label story. And he's like, "Yeah, nah, but y'all keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing." But just having people know who and what Zimbabwe Legit was kind of told us that it needs to live.
Yeah,
You need to keep carrying that banner. And I'll even hear from people, especially now, internet and Facebook, and people can reach out to you that you've never met from places you've never been. Somebody was telling me that he was in the rural areas. So, like, if you think in U.S. terms, would be in the country, but like the
hmm,
way out country, in the sticks, the boonies. So he
yeah,
said he was out in the rural areas and heard about a group called Zimbabwe Legit that was in America making music, and it inspired him to be like, yo, if these guys from here are doing it in America, then what's to stop me? And so hearing a story like that is like poignant and moving, and I'll hear
wow,
those kinds of stories a lot from people who were like, yo, like there's another rapper, Asaph from Bulawayo, that he was saying similar thing, like, yeah, seeing you guys do it kind of inspired me to do it, and now he's making waves and making noise over there. And so just seeing that, and my brother said he went to Japan for like, I think like more of like a theatrical dance exchange program he was doing.
yeah,
I'm not even rapping. And it came in through his bio or something, Zimbabwe Legit. They're like, here's Zimbabwe Legit. And he's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, you you should have led with that, like, type thing. Like, oh, we remember Zimbabwe Legit. Yeah, yeah, that was like, and so you see stuff like that and you're like, yeah, we got to keep it going. Can't stop, won't stop, as they say.
Yeah, man. That's crazy as far as you know, there's something I came across where you had an experience where you went into Tower Records and um, basically you found your album, but it wasn't in the hip hop section. It was under the world music section. How'd that make you feel, fam? And like, what did you find out if that was like a label choice or was that something like at a store level choice or what?
It was kind of like store level choices, I think, on a grand scale, though. But it was funny. So we were Hollywood Basic, and I think we were distributed by WEA, was like the.
Warner Electric
Yeah.
and
Atlantic,
Atlantic, yeah.
yeah. Um, and so one of the things we felt anyway was we were kind of like second priority, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like they had their labels, and then this was like a subsidiary label that they also distributed. So a lot of times people were like, yo, is your record out? Like, it's out. Like, we can't find it. I had people that were like, yeah, you guys told me you were coming out. I'm in Ohio. Where can I find the record? And they're like, in the record store, just go ask. And they're like, yeah, I asked. They said they don't know Zimbabwe Legit. They don't have it. And so we were kind of worried about, like, getting that. Oh, there goes Ultra Bag. What up?
Which
What up?
we
What
just
up?
locked in a date for an interview coming up here on August 24th, I
Awesome.
believe. We got, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I'll have to tap back in to hear that. I'm gonna have to tap back in and hear that. But yeah, so we'd be hearing from places that they didn't have the record. We're also hearing from DJs. I remember at New Music Seminar, people were like, yo, when's the record coming out? We're like, it's out. They're like, yo, I want a copy. I want to spin it on my show. I don't have it. How can I get it? And stuff. And so there were those kind of challenges. But I remember the whole world music thing, and it's funny. So one thing I didn't say, when we were in Zimbabwe, there are record distributors, record companies, not many. There might have been one or two at the time. And we took music to them at one point, and we're like, yo, we want to do some rap. This is what we're thinking. We're going to. And they kind of looked at us and were like, yeah, you guys are making American music. Like, why don't you make traditional music? They're like, we can't sell that. Like, and we're like, no, but this is like the new thing. And they were like, yeah, this is, you guys are trying to be too much like the Western music. You need to do your own traditional music. And so fast forward to come to the US, Hollywood Basic, drop a record, Zimbabwe Legit, go to Tower Records, and our music is in the world music section. It's like, go figure. You can't catch a break, right?
Yeah, it's like, man, come on, man. Like, I can understand. Like, I'd have felt some type of ways. Like, why am I not in the genre of music and section where I belong? You know what I mean?
And when people look for it, they'll look and rap and go to Z and not see it. And be like, oh, it's not here and stuff. So we were like worried. And so we do our own little small guerrilla tactics, and we move it and put it in the
Going through all the record stores, it's like, let's go.
like Nobody Beats the Wiz on Broadway. And be like, a couple times we go talk to the manager, and they'd be like, oh, that's when the distributor sends it, that's where it's categorized, file under, or whatever. We'll be like, no, it's hip hop. And we get assurances like, oh yeah, next time we get a shipment, we'll make sure. That probably never happened. But yeah, we go to like Tower and different stuff and be like, okay, now we putting our joint in the hip hop.
Yeah, manually put that stuff in there.
We gonna put it Z to A instead of A to Z. Like, bow, how you like it? With the CD box, remember the CD long boxes? That was like back when those things were popping.
So you had to rebuild, and basically from when you rebuild it, that's not a word. I'm sorry. When you rebuilt, rebuilded it.
Yeah.
You did Brothers from the Mother, and you recovered music from the early period. I want to ask you, how did you decide what belonged in the public from those early recordings? Like, as far as all right, we're gonna put out stuff from our previous project and add in addition to like what was that, and like how, just to explain that project altogether.
Yeah, now so Brothers from the Mother was basically kind of a reclamation of Zimbabwe Legit. Like I told you, we're kind of in purgatory,
Yeah,
wandering in the wilderness for 40 days and for 40 nights. I'm
yeah.
trying to figure out like what to do. But I got to give a big shout out to Jay at Glow in the Dark Records.
Okay.
'Cause he came to me and I was talking. I was doing something with Domination Records, so DJ at Domination Records, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my boy Jay, he's got a label called Glow in the Dark, and he's really interested on any Zimbabwe Legit, like, what happened, like, what's that missing chapter." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got, we got the recordings or whatever. They just ain't, never came out." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'll put you in touch with Jay." So talk to him, and he was like, "Let me hear it." And he listened, and he's like, "Yo!" And then there's stuff that had come out on the EP. So "Doing Damage," "To Beat or Not to Beat" had been out, but there was other stuff that we had recorded that hadn't come out. And he was like, "This is dope. People want to hear this. People will be." He's like, "I'm talking to some other folks about it." He's like, "And yo, this will really, make some noise. Like, we should do something with it if y'all are down." He's like, "And we can also put in the liner notes the story of Zimbabwe Legit, so y'all can, share your perspective." And so I was like, "Okay." Talk to Akim. He's like, "Yeah, like this sounds real dope," because again, it was kind of like in purgatory. It's like in the ether, like folks hadn't heard it. We'd made all this stuff and had all these grand plans. And so I was like, okay, so that Lost Brother from the Mother album is gonna come out. And it was cool because they had connections and distribution, and so we were able to do it on vinyl, did it on CD. We were able to strike a licensing deal with a label in Japan to do like an import version with alternate cover and stuff, and like a couple, I think, one or two different tracks that hadn't been on the main release and everything. And so it was just cool because that kind of affirmed, like, okay, like that meme of Stringer Bell, like, "I want you to put the word back out that we back up,"
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, Zimbabwe Legit, we back. And so it was good because it also, again, like you said earlier, kind of that confidence boost of people really want to hear this and people are feeling
Mm-hmm.
it. And even years later, like it resonates. Like if
Mm-hmm.
only we could have released it back then, but you know what? Can't go back in time, but we can put it out now and have a whole new legion of people hear it, appreciate it, and love it. And so that was cool to be able to do that. And it did well for us too, like just in terms of the movement and the numbers, the attention, and everything. And also, I think boosted kind of the profile, for people who might have forgotten or never heard, kind of got to hear it fresh and
Yeah.
everything. So that was a cool experience. And they were like, "Yo, on the CD, this is when they did. I don't remember if you remember enhanced CDs.
Oh,
Pop
absolutely.
it
With
in
the
your
computer.
laptop." And
Yeah.
so we did an enhanced CD that had the Doing Damage video on
Those were
there.
so ill. Loved them.
And so it was cool to be able to do all of that. But yeah, and then that was just kind of like, okay, springboard. Because then I was like, okay, now they've heard the old Zimbabwe Legit. And I'm like, I was writing those rhymes years ago. I've got some illness that I want people to hear now. So on
How
the
you
heels
like
of
me
that,
now?
I did Zimbabwe Legit some years later, but Zimbabwe Legit House of Stone album. And that was basically me saying, yeah, all right, now we're going to kick the door in. We've been sitting around, waiting for people to acknowledge it, but now we're going to crash through walls, come through floors, like Run DMC says, bust through ceilings and knock down doors. So it was real cool. Yeah, big up Funk and Klein. Rest
Yeah.
in peace, like
Rest in
Ultra Mag
peace.
said, like, cause he really believed in us, and there's something about that. Like when somebody, like he said, like he was like, I really believe in what you guys are doing, and the fact that it's different, and you guys aren't trying to be like everybody else. And I think that's what his whole concept and vision was like, hey, let's do something different. Like let's be different.
Yeah.
a funny story that bridged the gap between the Source era days and going into the House of Stone record.
Yeah.
So when we did come to the U.S., it was really cool actually. They were like, "Hey, why don't you write an article about the rap industry and rap, how you guys were trying to make it in Zimbabwe, and kind of how does that parallel what goes on in the U.S. or whatever." And so we wrote, like, at the time it's like, I mean, this is a Source magazine, like a 2-page article about our struggles to come up, and do music in Zimbabwe and kind of what our experience was. But Funky Line helped facilitate that article, and so we went and talked to Dave and John Schechter and stuff about what the article should be, what they wanted us, and did edits and all that stuff. But it was cool to be able to like write about our story, and this was before we'd even dropped an album. And so Source, we'd be at the Source a couple times, when we'd be in Manhattan. And then down the hall from the Source magazine was 720 Productions, and YZ was it was his production management company. And so we popped in there, or he popped out or something, and did the introduction. And he was like, "Oh yeah, nah, that's cool," and he was all excited. And we'd just been recently seeing his video, thinking of a master plan, playing on BET and everything. So it was real cool, running into him and talking. And the one thing we didn't have, and if I knew back then what I know now, we didn't have a manager. So everything we were doing, we were just hustling and grinding on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, I run a management company." He's like, "Oh yeah, why don't we talk?" And so we set up a couple meetings with him, and just were building with him. And he was actually going to manage Zimbabwe Legit. He ended up moving to Atlanta. I was also in college at the time, so I'd be up in Virginia, down in Virginia Tech, and so the timing didn't work out. Fast forward years later, I can't even remember. I just remember getting a message from YZ, and he was like, "You know who this is or something, or you know who I am?" And I was like, "Oh, YZ, what's good?" And he's like, "What you doing? What are you still doing music?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, cool." He's like, "You working on anything you want me to get involved with?" And that was before I had started actually recording anything for House of Stone, and I had a beat from my producer homie called Saint, and I had this dope beat, and I knew I wanted to do something with it. And YZ's over there saying, "Hey, you want to do something?" And he was like, he's like, "Preferably let's do it quickly." He's like, "Because things get busy and then it might never happen." And so I sent him the track, and that became Vicious Circle. And he started it off, still one of the greatest intros from a collaborator. He's like, Zimbabwe, legit, yo. So, then he goes into the intro of it. But
yeah,
and it was cool because the chorus is, "It's a shame what you got to do to try to get ahead in the game. Plenty to lose and nothing to gain. But if you maintain through the pain, you'll be stronger, and you can hold on a little longer." You hear that little note to self, like, so all my people, if you're with me, put your hands up. And if you a real man, then stand up. This goes out. Got to shout to the brothers and sisters. Got to break the cycle because it's vicious. And so, man, it was real dope getting him. And then that kind of just opened the spigot. Like, once he was down, then it was easy to tell people, "Hey, I'm doing this record. I've got the first joint locked, with YZ." And so then everybody else that was coming on board, it was kind of real. It wasn't just like this mythical, "Hey, I've got this idea. I want to do this album." And of course, called it House of Stone because Zimbabwe translated means houses of stone. And
got
so
you.
Kind of the reason.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and that was kind of again reestablishing, that you don't need to like let that go. That's an important part of who I am and who we are. And like, sometimes you try to reinvent yourself, and you just need to go back to who you were when you started. So that was.
I think I quoted every single episode. One of my favorite songs, of course, being from Ohio originally, and the funk is in my blood. Steve Arrington and Slave, band, Nobody Can Be You But You, right?
Yeah, I
So
love that song.
be you, and like whenever you are you and you're genuinely you, that's what shines through, and that's what really cuts. So like if you're biting or you're trying to be someone other than yourself, then it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to come through. But like that, and you tying everything together to your real roots and history and everything, like that's dope. And
Yeah.
the one thing I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about your father, and I'm gonna try to do my best not to mess this up, but Dr. Sikani So in Lovu.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, he built an education institution, and now you lead a university hip hop ensemble. Do you see the connection between those two paths? And like, how much or how important was your father in your life as far as like how you approach things as a young man and even to this day as well?
I think the support, um, that my father and my mom, my father may he rest in peace,
Yes, yeah.
and my mom, who's still living, provided just kind of that environment for us to be creative and thrive. The traditional African parents, so you had to get your education, your grades had to be, on point. But as far as the dance, I remember when we were b-boying and breaking, doing a head spin in the living room and him clapping, like, hey, my mom being like, oh, you're going to break your neck. I remember him driving us to like go to like events or whatever and being like, oh, what time do you guys want me to pick you up? And we're like, maybe midnight. And he's like, okay, yeah, just come back into the parking lot at midnight. And I'll get you guys, because we were, like early high schoolers or whatever, so couldn't
Yeah.
get out and about on our own. So that support and encouragement, but also I even take it further back than that, and I alluded to it earlier, like that musical legacy and education. Like, there was always music playing in the house, and
Yeah.
it's always a rich culture and tradition. I remember hearing Hugh Masekela play, and those songs were kind of like religion. You know what I mean? Like, we'd hear him, played over, and he'd speak of liberation music. Talking about free South Africa and anti-apartheid protest through the music that we'd hear. And so this them playing that music and us enjoying it and hearing it and hearing that protest tradition in the music, but them kind of being supportive of us having creative endeavors and stuff. And I definitely had friends who, like I was saying, with the double deck like cassette, like, yo, you got to be out because Pops is coming home, and they never were like that with us in the music. Like I said, they were super like strict around, like, your grades got to be good, you got to keep your grades up, you got to do your schoolwork, but totally encouraged kind of the creative element and aspect, and enabled it to happen. And it's ironic because my mom and dad were both educators.
Yes.
Dad doing it on an independent, doing really like remote education before the internet, doing distance education through correspondence. And then my mom's nursing science and teaching. And I never really felt like inspired to be a teacher per se. That wasn't necessarily my path, and so I didn't go down that path. But like you said, hey, full circle, what goes around
Dun,
comes
dun, dun.
around. Here I am at a university teaching, and
Yeah.
so I think it's one of those things that if it's in the, I don't want to say in the ether, but if it's in the nature versus nurture of how you're brought up, it's something that will return to you if it's meant to be that way. And
Yeah.
so I think it's cool to be able to be in a university teaching. And I've done stuff with like workshops at like libraries and like workshops in schools. And as you're doing things, you don't always realize what it's preparing you for. But I'm definitely more effective in the classroom at a university because I've done workshops in a sixth grade class and seen how to like balance interest with excitement, with creativity, with order, and manage chaos and kind of focus, and do those things, right? Like you kind
Yeah.
of have to do it and practice it to get proficient at it. Just like you do with your raps. Like teaching isn't just be like, oh, I'm a rapper, so I'm just gonna go ahead of tell these people anything. Like you gotta have a plan and kind of orchestrate it and deliver something of value that makes people feel included and supported, but also directed, because you're imparting something from what you know, but not being too prescriptive. Like there's a whole lot that goes into it. As anyone who's done any kind of teaching will be able to attest. And so
Yeah.
it's been really cool for that part of my journey. And I also think like we're talking about persevering, maintaining, making it through the ups and downs. I think having, the industry and the business can be cold. You know what I mean? It can be
Yes.
stressful. It can be hectic. Teaching is kind of like a renewing, regenerative type of activity where you get to appreciate through students who are appreciating the art and seeing things with fresh eyes and kind of being reinvigorated, and
Yes.
standing and showing them and rocking with them and collaborating, and they'll always be like, are you gonna spit a verse, are you gonna spit a verse, and they're like, oh, they get excited and it gets me excited. And seeing them appreciate the music, seeing them bring new music to my ears that I may not be familiar with, me, making them familiar with stuff, from the classics and the golden age or whatever, and us kind of meeting in the middle and them being like, yo, next semester, can we do like Nas New York State of Mind? And I'm like, oh, that's like one of my favorite songs. And so just having that interaction, I think, has definitely been regenerative. And I'd encourage any artist, like if you have an opportunity to teach or to show, and demonstrate, like formally or informally. I mean, I started doing this stuff informally, and then it turned into something formal and formidable.
Yeah.
It's been great, and so I really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the seeds planted, by my folks, by my dad, by my mom, in me that have led me to this point. And like I said, like sometimes booking shows and calling promoters and releasing product and trying to promote, it's like a grind, and so it's nice to have something that
Yeah.
you feel gives back to you what you put in it, comes back out, versus like just pushing up a rock uphill all the time. So that's been super dope, to be able to do that.
And then I mean, like you even so from George Washington, you went all the way to Thailand and had a residency over there, and like you said, transferring that energy, that love, that passion, and connecting that with folks from a completely different country, that one, you had language barrier, right? And two, some of these students didn't have any type of experience whatsoever with hip hop or writing anything, right?
Yeah. No, that was a super dope experience. It's cliche, but like Biggie says, whoever thought hip hop would take it this far,
Man.
um, going, so think about that kid in high school in the late 80s writing to the Source magazine talking about, hey, I'm in Zimbabwe and I rap. And then fast forward to years later, that same kid traveling to Thailand as a hip hop instructor teaching emceeing. So super wild and like unbelievable. And so appreciative of that opportunity. But heading over there, I done workshops and taught and like, songwriting and hip hop. And so super dope opportunity. So I had my game plan, like this is what we're gonna learn. I'm gonna do some hip hop history. We're gonna go over this and structure. And we get over there and then realize that most of the students, I think it was like 14 students, it was a good number of students in the class. A lot of them didn't have experience rapping, that's fine. But then there's also the language barrier. So not all of them were proficient in English. And so it's like, oh, this is going to be a little more challenging than initially anticipated. And I always laugh because I'm like, we went as a team. So there was a DJ. Shout out to Dirty Digits. He was the DJ, producer, Renee Soul, B-Boy, Toys. And I always say, like, if you're teaching b-boying, like, you can kind of demonstrate the move and people can understand, like you're saying, do what I'm doing or this is what we're doing. When you're rapping, you're just talking, so you've got to, like, you can't just demonstrate it and have somebody do it because it's not action oriented necessarily.
Right.
And so it was a fun challenge, but it was cool because we got some of the students or some people that joined the class were proficient in English, and so could use them as like translators and communicators. And then a lot of it too was like vibing. Like I remember, like I was like, okay, so to kind of get us going and get out of this awkward, like uncomfortable, communication issue, let's cipher. So communicated like, hey, we're gonna go around the circle, and each person's gonna spit or rock something, that is inspiring to them or whatever that they've got to say. So we, listened to some beats, did some writing, whatever, talked to them about freestyling. Obviously they were newer to it, so more comfortable writing stuff. But it's like, okay, just get your 4-8 bars down, and then we're gonna cipher. And so we got in the circle, threw the beats on, and it was cool because I think one of the times we were doing the cipher, it was like mad energy. Everybody was amped, and we, told everybody like, yo, you got to be supportive of whoever's rocking, and big them up and cheer, as if it's you on the stage, make some noise for them. And so we were doing that. And then I think like the president of the university we were working out of came by, and we didn't like stop to be like, oh, hey, this is what we're doing. And right now we're doing we just kept ciphering. So he just saw all this energy and poetry and motion happening right in front of his eyes. And he saw how excited the kids were or the students were in the class. And so it was like no explanation needed. Like he just witnessed exactly what was going down and how into it they were and how much it was impacting them in a positive way. And so you can't you can't take away those experiences. Like that was just so moving to be able to do that. And then I remember it was funny, they were like, hey, there's somebody in the DJ class. This is like a day or two into it. They're like, there's somebody in the DJ class that raps. I'm like, y'all got somebody that raps this whole time and he's DJing? So it's like, have him come over. And he could kind of speak English a little bit, but not a ton. But he sang, he played the guitar, and he rapped. So I'm like, man, this is going to be fresh or whatever. So he ended up being like me and him, like tag team, like leading the set. But I remember one of the first things, I was playing a beat, and he looks at me and he says, concept. He's like, he wants to know what the concept. I'm like, no, I got it. And so I broke down to him the concept of people coming together or whatever and spreading love. And he was like, okay. And then, he put his parts together. But that was just so cool just to see somebody be like, concept. And then it's like,
right. And just,
that's all he just needed to lock in. Like,
yeah. I got to say that, I've had an opportunity to coach and also through my professional career do a lot of teaching and mentorship, and especially, mentoring and coaching and dealing with youth. It's always so rewarding, and seeing that transfer of energy, right? Even on your worst day when you go in and you're like, man, all right, let me just get through this day, and then you get in there and you see people, see people excited and get enthusiastic about what it is that you're doing, and it's like, this is it's so rewarding. So salute to you and hats off to you for everything that you do in regards to keeping the culture moving and educating people, and everything that you've done throughout your career and your perseverance, making your way through the independent lane and doing everything that you're at to the point where, let's talk about Forward to the Future. Okay. Now, and I love the fact that there's wordplay even in this in this title, right? So
Right.
instead of just regular forward, no, it's FOREWORD to the future.
Right.
Like, why is the album titled Forward to the Future instead of Forward to the Future?
Right. It's kind of like the question being asked, or the question on the table, is like they said on the Leaders of the New School, where do we go from here? And so that was what I was kind of contemplating as I was going to putting this record together. Like, where do we go? And another way of looking at it is like, what does the future portend? What does the future hold? And so it's like, well, this is going to be the foreword. This is the preamble that's going to usher in that future, which I'm hoping to be vibrant and bright and positive and uplifting. And so this is kind of a commentary on what's going to happen. This is before you read the book, the foreword of what it's all about. And so, and then I also just like you said, the play on words. I'm not going back to the past. I'm going forward to the future. I'm not going back to the future like the movie. So
Right.
a whole lot of play and intricate stuff happening there. And then if you think about the songs on the album, Life is What You Make It talks about the growth and inception and pioneers and also people we've lost through hip hop and how I started. And so it's kind of a journey through it all. Also a song on there called This Is My Calling, which is kind of like a testament to what I've been through, what I've seen, what I've done, and what I've needed to do to persevere. And so it felt right doing it that way. And when I did this record, I also wanted to like reach out. Like it's more fun to me. It's like exciting to me really to collaborate with all these folks that I've admired and respected and admired from on afar, and then have connected with and have been able to build with, but also want to hear them share their perspectives on my record. Like that's just like makes it all worth it for me. And so I was also like, yeah, you know what I mean? Let me reach out and see if I can get some of these heavy hitters to come on this journey with me.
And let's talk about that. I mean, because look, Life is What You Make It. You got Chubb Rock, YZ, and Chuck D on there, right? And, was there any intentional choosing, or was it more so how things came together as far as who was on that record? Because I mean, all three of them, right? Like, my God, so important in hip hop history. Like we talk about Chuck. Chuck is someone that taught me, Chuck and KRS-One taught me so much as a young man, and really had such an impact on the direction of my life. And then, of course, Chubb Rock, when he came out with, and he was out there, like, he was always teaching as well, and had education and knowledge, and very much he would hit you across the face, you know what I mean, with stuff too. And then YZ the same way, like that track is so dope because you got a bunch of different versions of it too, man. Like, so you've got a bunch of different remixes and flavors for everyone, like, and each one in itself is different. So like, tell me about how that record came together, bro.
Yeah, man, that shoot, sometimes they say it's just like this fate, the way things end up being the way they are. Like, I have to imagine like listening to Chuck, ending up meeting Chuck over the years, connected with him, and then being able to circle back to where I can put out a record on his imprint, Spit Slam. Kind of divine intervention, if you will. But so Life is What You Make It, I think, encapsulates all of these pieces coming together at the right time.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a song called No Guarantees. and I love working with Chubb Rock. I admired him so much. Also, in my freshman year, when I was at Virginia Tech, nonstop, Treat 'Em Right would be on the spinning, and the whole place would be hopping. Just the two of us, just all his records, like you said, and also having that conscious element in his raps or whatever. So anyway, reached out to him because I was like, yo, I'd love to get another joint with Chubb Rock. I mean, he's been so gracious. Like, I've done 3 joints with Chubb Rock.
I know, it's
Come on,
crazy,
man.
fam.
He was on the House of Stone on Wake 'Em Up with Vast Air. And then he was on Doing It the Right Way on the song We Don't Need No More Trouble. And then we put a remix on this joint. But anyway, so reached out to him, and I wasn't sure if we were gonna get the joint completed in time or whatever, but I was like, well, I've got the song No Guarantees, and I kind of want to do a remix with Chubb Rock on it or whatever. And so I was like, well, maybe if I just get him to do the hook, we can knock this out in that way. So I hit him up, and he was super gracious. He's like, yeah, whatever you need, let me know what you're trying to do. And I told him about the concept of the song and everything, and also how I wanted it to kind of talk about the journey through hip hop. And he was like, oh yeah, I love that. Then yeah, let's get it done. And he hit me and he was like, send me the track again. He's like, I'm gonna knock that out. And so I sent it to him, and he sent it back, and he's like, yeah, I did the hook like you said. He's like, but based on what you were talking about, I did a verse too, if that's cool with you.
You're like, yeah.
Y'all should have seen me in my basement jumping up and down, like, yo! And I'm playing his verse back over and over again. I'm like, yeah.
Man.
And then I spoke to YZ, and YZ is another one, man. He's always come through in the clutch, like, always. Like, I can't say enough about that brother. Like, he's so dope as an artist, and as a hip-hop entrepreneur and business person, and one of the early people, doing his business as an independent entrepreneur in hip hop. But he always comes through, and he was like, yo, let me know. And I was like, yo, I got this joint, Life is What You Make It. And he's like, I'm down, like, let's do it, let's put it together. And so we put it together, and I loved what Chubb Rock had done on the chorus and how he came at it. And so I'm like, well, let me write from my perspective, how I came up and came to this thing. And so did that. And then YZ put his perspective and, giving tribute to all the people we've lost and all the fallen. So it was cool because Chubb Rock talks about the inception and who all the pioneers were. I talk about how I came to it and, name drop some groups that influenced me and how I came through it, and, give props and shout out to my older brother. And then YZ rounds it out. But then I was like, yo, things are coming together, man. Like, things are coming together. So now that we're doing this on Spit Slam, I was like, this has to be the opportunity to get Chuck down on this record. And so shout out to C-Doc on the facilitation. It's like, yo,
I'd love to see
can make that happen. And so again, here's the concept, here's the song, here's the idea, here's what we want to do. And then so when Chuck D's like, no guarantees, do me right. Not only are you saying it right, you're doing it right. I'm like, all right. I am so blessed to just be in that position, to be like, yo, not only did he come on the record and not just be like, yo, what's up? Yo, this is Chuck, big up. Like, he really said some stuff that was super meaningful, super dope, and he gave me a shout out, in the process. So loved that. And then you can imagine after that, it's like, okay, I feel like I can do anything.
Yeah. You had that battery put in your back, just like in the days when Mr. Long, in the first studio sessions, you had another battery put in your back, like turbocharged.
Yeah, and then so in the process, and then working with Spit Slam and C-Doc and figuring out who we can get to produce joints and who had beats and which joints we are gonna do, and then Speech from Arrested Development, and he mentioned. I was
gonna say, be careful, man. Woo!
And so it's crazy because he and I have corresponded in the past. and it's kind of been like, oh yeah, what's going on, what's good. And obviously, they've got a huge Afrocentric
I
vibe,
love Speech, man.
music,
And Arrested Development. Come on.
conscious and uplifting and all of that. But we'd never like collaborated, and so when I had reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, no, I'd love to, let me know what the deal is. And I told him like, yeah, here's the joint, be careful. And my homie, shout out to Nathaniel Starr, who sings on that joint.
Amazing. And he's been, you worked with him a couple of times, like amazing, gifted individual.
Yeah, super dope vocalist, singer, like real richness to what he does, and he also brings a lot to the table just in terms of like how he delivers it and how he goes about it. But so have him singing on the chorus, and then same thing when I heard Speech. When Speech finished his verse, I was jumping up and down in the basement again, like, yo, he crushed it, like, super dope. And then always loved the Artifacts,
Oh,
always.
man.
And I used to host a radio show in college. Would always play their joint. Come on with the Come On, stayed in
Oh,
rotation. Both versions, including the remix with Busta
yes.
Rhymes,
Yes.
Artifacts, The Wrong Side of the Tracks. Um, so many songs from them. So anyway, I knew I wanted to rock with a joint with El the Sensei, and he heard the joint. And he was like, "Yo, this is crazy. I'm on it. Like, I'm definitely gonna come through with it." And so it just was real beautiful. And you asked a question that I didn't answer about the choices and whether it was deliberate. It was people that I've been influenced by, have respected and admired, or have interacted with over the years. And I wanted to bring them as part of this journey. So it's kind of like they've influenced me to get to this point. And so now I wanted
Forward
to,
to the forward. The
yes,
future. The
exactly
forward to
right.
the future. Yeah.
Yeah, forward to the forward, from the next stop on to the next stop on to the next. So it was good bringing that group, that coalition. It was like bringing a coalition together of all, the best and the brightest that I had been inspired by together on these tracks. And I love the fact, like, sometimes there's artists, and, there's nothing wrong with it, that people get on tracks that kind of pair up. But I swear, I don't think Fast Air and Chubb Rock, I think that was the first time that's been done. Speech and Elder Sensei, Chubb
Right.
Rock and YZ. It's like a unique combination. And so I love that that they were able to bless me,
Yes.
by being a part of it, and making something unique, you know what I mean? Because I love a posse cut. We all love a posse cut. And hearing the different voices, the different takes, the different styles. Really cool to be able to do that. And shout out again to C-Doc too, because working through like the Be Careful, we had different versions, and I told him, I was like, yo, I need you to read. He's like, you want another one from me? I'm like, yeah, I need something special on this, because I also wanted it to be, we talked about it being like different beats for each MC, kind of like
Yes.
the gangsta, the group, Who's the Man or
Yep.
whatever, and where the beat changes for everybody. So he set it up that way. He wanted to come and do that, and I was like, yeah, that'll be dope. And so we listened to like how it would work and how the transitions would work. But that also makes it extra special because it's not just like, it's four people on the track, so it's a longer song, and so the fact that it changes along the
And
way
salute
is
to you
cool.
for putting out longer songs, man, because these minute 50, 3 minute songs just get on my
Two,
damn nerves, man.
minutes,
Like,
2 seconds,
yeah,
And
ADHD stuff. Like,
And shout out to the college radio, man, because they showed us mad love on Life Is What You Make It,
mhm.
on Rap Attack Lives, hit number 1, and
Shout
then
out to Rap
Be
Attack.
Careful, yeah, same thing, hit number 1. But shout out to those DJs. The feedback was incredible. Cats were definitely feeling it. Gave us definitely real good quotes and shouts about how they felt about it, which again kind of reinvigorates you, like to be like, yeah, there's people out there that are digging what we're doing. There's people that are liking the direction we're going. So that was real positive as well. Like for
Real
sure.
hip hop. And then, you had Stay Focused, and that connects Washington to Harare to Johannesburg. Walk me through how that record and video came together, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so for Stay Focused, Outspoken, one of the preeminent MCs coming out of Zimbabwe, also super conscious and progressive in what he talks about. And then Psychotech, MC that's folks that put me up on. And what I liked is Outspoken raps in English and Shona, which is one of the languages in Zimbabwe, and then Psychotech raps in English and in Ndebele. So talk about doing damage in my native language. Them cats are doing it at a high level. So it was cool to kind of be like, yo, I'm gonna reach back and connect, with my other brothers from the mother and do a collaboration joint and also give them a platform and a voice and for people to see what they're doing, because also just the way they utilize the language and the linguistics is crazy, and going back and forth with that bilingual flow. It's super interesting and exciting, and so it was real fun to be able to do that. And then we did a video for it, and I was talking to the guy who edited the video, and I was like, yo, is this really even possible? Like, will it, I know it's possible, but is it gonna look good? Because this one cat's in Johannesburg, this other cat's in Harare, I'm in Washington DC. He's like, nah, just get them to record HD footage. And then we kind of talked about what the visual should look like, what kind of shots we wanted to get, and put it together. And then shout out to my homie McGee. He blended and pulled it all together, and it came out super dope. But it was like, yeah, that intercontinental, not only song but video, like super fresh to be able to do that.
Yeah.
On the joint called Stay Focused, and like again, you hear the mantras repeated, right? Don't lose focus, like don't get distracted by the gazillion things going on in the world. Like if you got a mission, sometimes you got to stay focused. So that's what that was all about.
So, we're getting close to the end, and I have a couple questions that I want to ask you to wrap it up, right? And first off, though, your bio mentioned that you're planning on return to Europe in 2026. How are those plans coming? Do you have dates confirmed, or you still working towards setting things up?
No dates confirmed. A couple back and forth ups and downs. So nothing I can speak on, but it may be different continent that I go to.
Okay.
So that's soon enough we'll figure that out. But
Be
yeah,
on the lookout.
I do want to get to Europe too, though, and perform, like, and do workshops and build and kind of see the hip hop scene in a couple of places out there. So that's not far behind. But yeah, might be going to a different continent sometime here soon to do another residency teaching MCing and hip hop.
Mad love to you for that, man. And then, what's the next chapter after the Foreword to the Future?
So definitely, and I always say this, with independent albums, we just keep rocking it till the wheels fall off. So I'm pushing that joint heavy. I want everybody who doesn't own it on vinyl, and it's also out on cassette, to cop it if they don't own it or don't have it. Just get a copy. It's also on digital. You can get it on Bandcamp on like the Spitslam page or on the Dumi Right Bandcamp. So definitely go get it. And then there's a bunch of, like, you talk about the versions. We got some remixes and B-sides that
instrumentals
and stuff. So definitely want to do that. But I'm also working actively on some new joints, like some real fiery new heat that I can't wait for people to hear. I'll probably do an EP just because I don't want to wait too long and have it be like 2027 before people hear some new music. And I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's like ready, that or is in the process of being readied, I should say. So some really cool tracks that I'm cooking up, and really cool collaborations, new and some familiar faces, kind of like the Spike Lee movies, the Spike Lee players. You always
Yeah,
see a couple. That's how I'm starting to do these
I
records.
love it.
You see Elder Sensei pop up. You'll see YZ pop up. You'll see maybe some new faces. But anyway, so working
Part of
on
your
some real new music.
Yeah, part of your ecosystem. I love it. So, basically to wrap it up, man, when your family looks back at Dumi Right, what do you want them to understand beyond the records and the credits?
Um, I'm gonna quote De La. Let the headstone read. He did it for us. Um, you know what I mean? Everything I do, I think is to try to uplift, and try to make a positive impact. Somebody was
Yeah,
telling me, they're like, "Do you call your stuff impact rap?" And I was like, "I don't." They're like, "You should," but it's like stuff that does something, that helps, it moves, it motivates. I had one of my students invite me out to a nonprofit that they work at, supporting like people that are trying to get back up on their feet, some unhoused and people going through challenges. And it was beautiful because she said, the energy you exhibited when you taught the hip hop ensemble is what we need at this organization. So can you come do a performance or whatever? So we did a thing like a couple weeks ago, and it was just really, again, reassuring to know like, hey, this stuff actually means something. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, we just made a song. Yeah, we were just rapping just to be rapping. It's like it actually meant something to somebody. And so I just want folks to know, like, yeah, like, the main objective was to really make an impact and make a difference. Inspire somebody, uplift somebody,
yeah,
have somebody relate and resonate. Have what I say resonate with somebody. That's the main aim. And I think a lot of times people miscalculate or misconstrue what success really is. They think it's how many streams did you have? Oh, how many followers did you have? It's like, how many people did you actually make a difference for or impact? And if it's one person, like, you did something. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot
all
of,
it takes one.
yeah, for sure.
Well, hey, man, like, I sincerely am so grateful that you blessed our platform, number one. Number two, but and most importantly, like, your story and what you've achieved despite, all of the different circumstances that you've had to face and overcome, and like you said, persevere through and keep pushing. And that's always something I always end with is keep pushing, keep positive, keep persevering. I mean, stay in the present, not in the past, and don't trip on the future. It's right here, right now, right? And do the best you can. And you absolutely have shown an unwavering endurance, and the fact that everything that you have been involved in, and the fact that you continue to do and put out the things and do the things that you're doing speaks volumes. And from a young man who held a Public Enemy tape to co-producing an album and on an imprint with the man himself, right? And everybody else that you've had an opportunity to work with, not to diminish any of it, it's full circle. And regardless of what the industry and the universe threw at you, the it, your character, your spirit has shined through and continued to make an impact, not only in the hip hop community, but even teaching folks and having an impact on youth. And that's the most important thing, is the fact that we live all these years, and if you're not sharing your story and you're not teaching what like the lessons that you had to learn the hard way, then why did you go through them in the first place, right? So again, nothing but respect. 2 hours, just not long enough to cover everything I want. But I am so grateful for your time, and thank you again. I hope you enjoyed yourself and enjoyed this interview.
Nah, for sure, man. Yes, for sure. Now, here's one thing that I was told, and to this day it remains true. Just keep pushing, then one day you're gonna have breakthrough. Might be twisting in the wind, don't ever let it break you. All the struggles we go through is the very thing that shapes you. Don't know the secret to success? Here's something that I suggest. I'm still here because I didn't give in to the pain and stress. So I'll say that. And I appreciate the opportunity and the time. Like I said, sharing my story at any given time is a blessing, just given how we started and the unforeseeable and unknowing things that would happen, coming out of, just taking a chance on myself, on ourselves. So glad to be here, man. I appreciate the opportunity and the time.
I appreciate you, fam. You got any shout outs? And also let everybody know the particulars are all in the description, but let them know how they can follow you and stay up to date with everything. And give your shout outs.
Yeah. Nah, shout outs, Spit Slam, C-Doc, Chuck D, and all the folks that contributed to Forward to the Future. Big shout out to the homie DJ RBI. He always looks out, and it's a pleasure to collaborate and rock with him at different spots. Got some shows coming up in September, October, and November in the DC DMV area. So tap in if you're around and check us out. And if you want to find Dumi Right, it's Dumi Right. So Dumi Right on Instagram, Dumi Right on Facebook, Dumi Right Music, YouTube, Dumi Right Music, and then the biggest one as far as like if you want to support phmusic.bandcamp.com, or else just make it simple, dumiright.bandcamp.com, and you can see the whole catalog of releases, albums, all the new material. You can check out the merch. And as we drop new music, you'll hear it right there and stuff. So stay tuned. The current record is Forward to the Future, and new music is on the way. But definitely go back through the back catalog. House of Stone, Doing It the Right Way, kind of all the joints. Brothers from the Mother. Check it all out if you can. But appreciate all the folks that have been rocking with us for years, and any of the folks that have discovered us recently or newly or maybe just today. Definitely appreciate you. Check it out. Definitely food for the soul.
Yes.
So tap in and check it out.
Yes, you will get fed. You'll get fed a lot. You'll learn a lot. And, if you love this thing that we love called hip hop, it's a catalog that you must absolutely go through and study. I've had nothing but the best time, and I remember the original group and everything like that, but just to be able to reconnect with everything has been such an amazing opportunity to even have this time with you. And again, I thank you, and I can't wait for a part 2 and can't wait to reconnect. And with everybody out there, we've got another episode of B-Boys Underground coming up. We got 2 more episodes coming up this week. We've got one this Wednesday. We're going to do the redo with Kaz Meta. He's got his connection issues sorted out. And then this Thursday, we got another ill MC called Jim Alexander that we're going to be doing. So make sure that you tap in with him. And I just want to say again, mad love to Split. Man, I can't talk. Spit Slam, mad love to C-Doc, mad love to Soul Rack, man, mad love to Chuck D, everyone, man. And we are B-Boys Underground, and we will see you this Wednesday, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Be blessed. Peace.
Love.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, follow. From my city to your world, we are City World.